co-main event of the evening, Valentina Shevchenko, what can you say? Again, just kind of ran over Alexa Grasso, winning an easy unanimous decision, getting every single round on every single judge's scorecard. BC, are you surprised in their third meeting that it was as one-sided as it ended up being?
Yes, shocked, because this goes against the grain of what typically happens in these situations. It's like, for as close as Shevchenko came in that second fight, which was a draw and was a very kind of like technical classic and great adjustments from both throughout, but she came really close. And now we were asking her to go to a third meeting, but sit out a year because you're filming The Ultimate Fighter and you're setting this up for the next Noche. And oh, by the way, you'll have turned 36. Is that what she is? 36?
No, she's 36 now. She'll be 37 in April.
So you'll be deep into 36 when the fight happens. We don't talk up enough what Deiveson Figueiredo did coming back after he got finished by Moreno to win back the title at 34 at Bantamweight. This is 36 and a half here at women's flyweight, where this division is as deep as ever. And this is one of the most decorated champions, one of the all-time greats. But this doesn't happen like this. Her to go against the grain and not just win this fight, but to go 50-45, deservedly on all three scorecards, a clean sheet. So I don't want to hear anybody about, oh, this was boring, it was too much wrestling, or the combination of this and Merab ruined the Sphere event and proved it was a financial debate. Stop with the madness. This was a historic, brilliant performance. In most cases, the younger fighter surges, if not just sometimes for youth or when a matchup is so close that inevitably every meeting will stay close until the older fighter declines. Luke, there was no declining on Saturday because she figured it out as what the great veterans do, to be as efficient as possible. She also, Luke, improved on her striking, meaning Valentina. Her counter hooks, her boxing counter hooks, completely bamboozled Grasso. Almost the same thing we're talking about O'Malley in the first two rounds, and really round one, particularly on the feet, giving you the feeling like there's nothing she can do. Dude, Grasso on the feet was completely out of her element in this one. And then that led to the success that Valentina had on the ground and on top. And while I certainly give credit to the moxie of Grasso to put herself in positions where she was close to a submission or at least had a big threat of one. Although if you listen to Rogan, every time they touch, Valentina's in trouble and in danger. What was up with that?
That was one of his, I usually one of these, that was all-time bad calls from him. That was one of the worst Rogan performances I've ever heard.
Every time he's like, look, there's the choke, it's in. Oh, Valentina's in trouble. She's in full mount.
We all appreciate how successful he's been and what he's done for MMA. He sounded mega washed on this broadcast.
Maybe he took too many edibles because of the Sphere experience. I mean, we were there in the crowd.
He was without sin, cast the first stone, but that was an all-time
just to close the point, Luke, this wasn't supposed to happen, and she not only did it, she did it easy and efficient and brilliant and raised parts of her game in the process. We don't deserve her. MMA doesn't deserve somebody this freaking great and dedicated, this level of a professional who afterwards said, I'm glad we didn't need trash talk to sell this fight. I'm glad it was about this. So I hope people respect this because that was real MMA on Saturday.
Here is what is amazing to me about this fight, BC. It's the third. You could say, well, O'Malley got run over, and he did, but that was the first time he fought Merab. This was the third time that Alexa Grasso has had to face this fighter in a row, by the way.
Yes.
In a row. And this was by far the worst she looked. And what really blew me away was, what was the big change from the first to the second fight? Shevchenko got rid of the spinning attacks because that was making her back vulnerable, and then really leaned into the wrestling in the second fight, right? We saw that there was a big physical difference between them, the strength.
Sure.
So that was what she did in the second fight. You had to know as her team, you had to know that they were going to go back to that in the third fight. Now, maybe this much, I don't know, but you had to know it was going to be absolutely critical to what they wanted to do. And her takedown defense got worse, and her ability to scramble off the bottom got worse. She declined in her ability.
Shut out.
Dude.
When does that happen in a fight like at this deep into a rivalry unless the older fighter completely falls apart? It never happens.
This is what is amazing to me. It was the third crack she had. She had 25 minutes in that third crack. There was a big gap in time between the second and third fight. Your opponent is close to 37 years old, and you got roughhoused. There are two explanations for that. One, Grasso just did a poor job. I mean, I'm just there's no.
Was the
other,
moment too big for her?
I don't know if the moment was too big, but
already.
her preparation for this was deeply inadequate. There's just really no two. You don't. If this was the first time they fought, I'd be like, well, you just got beat by a better person, and she did. But this was a better person where like you knew exactly what they were going to do. You've had multiple tries at it, and it got worse over time. That is incomprehensible. Then the second thing I'm going to say about this is, dude, we just have to make it. It probably already was true before this fight. But BC, I think the hardest thing to do in MMA is to win a UFC title and then maintain it. That is keeping a streak alive. Like I've saw people being like, oh, O'Malley lost it after one defense. That's actually more common for UFC champions than the opposite. It's actually rare to get a streak going. But to me, the second hardest thing to do is to lose your title, time elapses, and then you get it back later.
That's what the great ones do. That's it.
Valentina Shevchenko is at worst, the third best women's fighter of all time. That's the worst place she could occupy. I think it probably goes to Amanda Nunes. I do think that Cyborg probably occupies the second space because when she was in Strikeforce, she defended her title 4 times, in Invicta 3 times, UFC 2 times, and in Bellator 5 times.
Wow.
It's a level of dominance that is simply absurd.
Right.
However, for Shevchenko to do what she has done at women's 125, all while young contenders are emerging the entire time, to wrestle it back quite literally.
And to get better.
Firmly.
She's
firmly puts her top 3 all time.
She's knocking on whatever door she wants to because, so here's the idea, Luke. Is there time for her to go beyond knocking on top 3 all time? Is there time for her to make a run? I feel like it's been unfortunate that she didn't get the third Nunes fight because you can strongly argue that she should have been the Bantamweight champion that night. But Luke, what we saw right now and what she still has, which is a lot, you're going to be tasked with this question, I believe. Do you stay at 125 where there's killers come up? I mean, her against Faro is a hell of a fight. You've got Blanchfield trying to retool herself.
That fight will be boring, too.
You've got Rose Namajunas. There's some players in this here. Natalia Silva is another one at this weight class. Like, there's legitimate fun contenders, and they're going to be tough. Or because you're going to be 37 soon, and the window of history is usually short to get to, like, rare air, you got to tell the UFC, I'm going to 35. And maybe there's a chance through there to not only add Kayla Harrison to her resume in terms of, the great facing every great possible, but maybe she gets the trilogy with Amanda through that, with the potential to becoming a 2-division champion to really round out what's available to her. Because obviously she's a rare duck. The longevity, it's not just the longevity. It's not just that she's been doing this for, back to her Muay Thai career forever. I mean, this is forget lifelong passion. I mean, damn. Luke, if she could add a 2nd division title and add those Hall of Famers and GOATs to her resume, and if she can come through there winning, then she's going to have that chance to actually retire as the greatest.
That seems unlikely.
But wouldn't you chase it? If you're her, you got it.
There's no question I would chase it if I was her, especially with the time she has remaining. And she's maximizing it, certainly, at age 36. But a lot of factors beyond her control have to kind of play to her favor. Hard to know exactly how likely all that is.
But wouldn't you love to see her against Kayla, for example? Just a style contrast? Just
Absolutely.
See what that looks like?
Kayla's so big and strong. I think she would be one of the few fighters who would have a real physical advantage.
Sure.
However, on the feet, I think Valentina would light her up. And so that part makes it kind of interesting altogether. But I just think what Valentina showed was that is championship moxie right there, right? Where it's like, okay, I'm going to have to by the way, we're talking about it like all she did was wrestle. But on the feet, the combinations and flurries at the end of or after the jabbing of Alexa Grasso, she looked lost there too.
She bamboozled her.
She absolutely shut her down. Yes, with a lot of wrestling and a lot of top control, 100%, but also attempts from the back. And then on the feet, she kept it minimal. But on this, we talk about the good fighters, the great fighters, they make you fight on their terms.
Yes.
And she shut her down on the feet just long enough for her to be confused and then for the takedowns to come like that. Dude, this was a major humbling, I think, for Grasso, and one of these moments where I really hope folks appreciate it will be very rare. You can watch MMA fights for 20 years. How many times have you seen a UFC champion lose the belt and then get it back years later especially past the age of 35. It's been done by Couture, obviously, and he had to kind of go all over the place to do it. Now Shevchenko has done it. Stylebender just tried, could not do it at age 35.
Amanda Nunes did it pretty old
Amanda
too,
Nunes
yeah.
did it once after she lost it to that fight against Juliana Pena. But this one, look who's doing it.
Right.
Shevchenko,
the best, the goats.
Couture,
Nunes.
These exceptionally rare
fighters. Is he
fighters.
getting it back against Poatan with the knockout? Was it?
It's possible. It's possible.
No, he did it. He
Oh,
did
right.
that.
I'm sorry. He didn't do it against Dricus, but he did do it against.
He already did that shit.
So this is what I'm talking about. We're talking about the second best middleweight of all time, the top 1-3 best women's fighters of all time, one of the best light heavyweights / heavyweights of all time. Those are the only fucking people who can do this. That is it. And I really hope folks understand. Again, BC, I'm going to ask you, from a pure entertainment standpoint, was the co-main event that great?
I was entertained. Look, it's not entertainment isn't always by action, and it's like we got a lot of action on this card. We got
that's fair.
Rounds of the year and absolute brawls on this card because the main and co-main were technical and there's a drama in watching brilliance play out. There was a drama in watching Merab to see if he can keep throwing this no-hitter and keep O'Malley away, and O'Malley tried to rally around 5. It wasn't enough. There was a great sense of drama and entertainment to that, and I think in this co-main, seeing Valentina turn back time and do this, it wasn't overwhelmingly exciting, but that's what a veteran fighter should be, as efficient and smart and mastering the fine arts of all the foundational elements of this game as she has. She also seemed to be the more fit fighter at that age. I mean, she's just a complete, well-rounded legend. I don't get afterwards when Dana was kind of crapping on the main and co-main. He was putting out there that we can spend all this money on the Sphere and we can do all these big things, but the fights are going to be what they're going to be. And that's true. A promoter, you can make the best fight card ever on paper, but if it's duds, you take that blame too. But I would rather have him be like, let's talk about the brilliance of Valentina and Merab and where they fit pound for pound. And did you guys see the craft and the heart they showed, rather than just being like, too bad we didn't get the brawls we hoped for to close out the Sphere. That's fair, right? I mean, this was there's different kinds of fans. There's different reasons that you're watching it. And I'm not always on the MMA side looked at as a hardcore Luke. People look at me as a white belt piece of shit, even though I got that hardcore love for it. But this was, how could you not be entertained by this?
I will say this. I didn't mind it. I did a watch along for the co-main and main. So I was watching it live and I found it, I certainly found the main event entertaining. And I also agree with you. Entertaining doesn't just mean rock'em sock'em. Sometimes it can be drama or it can be real subtle things.
Storytelling. You get into their career arcs enough, it's all storytelling.
I will push back a little bit, though, and take Dana's side a little bit.
Take it.
The fact that Grasso looked much worse in the third fight and had no improvement, no answer, nothing I'm not saying she didn't work on things, but if she did, it didn't show up at all. Took a little bit of the wind out of my sails on this one. I appreciate what Valentina did.
I mean, look at it from a business sense. We talked coming into the Sphere card of if O'Malley finishes Merab and adds another name to his, streak, is he the biggest star in the whole sport suddenly? Is he chasing McGregor? I mean, we had these outsized things to say.
By the way, that went up in smoke.
It did,
Holy
but so
shit.
did the idea of you're doing Noche and, you're setting the stage with Grasso here in this trilogy for her to come over the top and win that rivalry and be the star of stars with the face up on the screen. So from a business sense, the two younger, more valuable brand prospects, you could argue, they both underwhelmed in their performance in a big way. So do you think that's really fueling what Dana was saying?
Probably. I give Sean significantly more of a mulligan here because it was literally the first time fighting this guy.
Yeah.
For Grasso, dude, this is your third crack. You got to be kidding me. Shevchenko showed her hand in the second fight about where they were going to go. You can go back and watch my watch along right before the fight starts. I'm like, okay, what did we learn from the second fight? She went wrestling heavy. Let's see if she could add more ground and pound, but she's going to go back to it. And then the first fucking thing she does is that, it wasn't mystifying.
Are you downgrading Valentina to a certain degree though, and saying, okay, what she did was brilliant and for her age, it was brilliant, but there was still an opening there for Grasso to overwhelm and counter that and figure it out. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying Valentina did everything she needed to get the win. I cannot say the same for Grasso. I don't feel like, if I cannot understand how you can be a champion, know what your opponent is going to do, or at least have a pretty good sense of it, and then get worse at defending it. That is just very, very hard for me to understand.
Seems to be a similar debate going on about Berlanga from the Canelo fight. I don't know if you saw Lou DiBella's aggressive tweets of saying, like,
he was reading my mind.
We're praising Berlanga for taking this beating and surprising us there, but he wasn't trying to win. I kind of disagree. I thought he was still trying to win, but we'll get into that.
I don't agree with that at all. But I will say this. We didn't talk about it very quickly. What should be next for Sean O'Malley? Because you mentioned what's going to be next for Valentina, in all likelihood, Manon Fiorot. She weighed in as a backup on Friday, just in case something happened.
It takes a lot of balls. I mean, it's opportunistic. It shows your discipline, but is there a risk ever doing that?
I think so. In fact, I know one fighter who got offered one of those for a title fight, and it was a shockingly low amount of money.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know what the situation. Maybe she got more for this one. I don't know. But okay, so it's going to be Fiorot versus Shevchenko. That fight is going to be super boring. I just have to tell folks it is now.
Yeah, but that's intriguing on an X's and O's chessboard.
It is, but it won't be action packed. However, the one that could be, and he called for it today, or I think last night, even on social media, Corey Sandhagen wants a fight with Sean O'Malley. And I got to tell you, yes, please, now make it. Whatever your problems might have been with Merab's wrestling heavy approach, I got a pretty good feeling, BC, we won't see a lot of that in Sandhagen versus O'Malley.
Could that be a pay-per-view main in this era?
Could be a co-main.
I wouldn't want it to be a main, but it's such a good non-title fight that I'd see it in any way I could, illegally or legally.
That fight is can't miss material.
That it would be such an important fight for both of their arcs right now. That would be great.
I think Major Redemption would be available on either side.
This division's great, dude.
It's fucking amazing.
Why are they putting Jose Aldo into fights that we don't necessarily care about?
So that Bautista fight is actually a good fight.
No, I get that these are, and that these are giving answers to whether.
But it's on the prelim card. That's the part that's like, what the fuck are we doing here with this one? I know.
Would you rather? I would rather see him against like legends, like Dom Cruz or something, and those type of fun old guy fights.
I wouldn't hate it. I think if you don't have a title, taking old guy fights is great. The problem with Jones is he's taking an old guy fight with a title.
Like if you've got a crappy pay-per-view in Brazil and you need like him to splash your co